Welcome to the Origin of Things, or TOOT for short. A short format podcast where I give you the origins, the backstories, slightly dramatized but 100% true, of things that you know, love and use. I reveal what I'm talking about only at the very end, keeping you, the listener, guessing, or so I hope. In previous seasons, I've taken you through the stories that have led to some of your favorite brands and the unlikely stories and accidents that got us there. If there's a lesson from this podcast, let it be that great things can come from the most unexpected of places and sometimes even mistakes. I am your host, Deepak Gopalakrishnan, or as the world calls me, Chuck. The origins of that for another day. In this season, we're going to do something slightly different. Let's get cracking. You'd think that after 50 episodes of doing origin stories of brands, I'd have covered every possible category. Well, apparently not. Today's story features a brand from a category I have never spoken about before. It's also a brand that changed everything. This is a story about 4 characters: Gerhard, Kathleen, Toby, and Toby's boyfriend. Got that? Good. Let's speak about the first one, Gerhard, who is an outlier in that quartet because he was born about a century before the others. Gerhard Heinrich Mennen. That's Mennen, by the way, not Menon. As much as we Malayalis are everywhere, we have no role to play in this story. Almost, but I'll get to that. Gerhard took a ship from Germany to America, where he set up a small factory in Newark, in New Jersey. Here, he started manufacturing things like talcum powder, aftershave, and general over-the-counter pharmaceutical products. The company did pretty well, releasing all kinds of products before being purchased by the Colgate-Palmolive company in the early 90s. That's the 1990s, not the 1890s. Gerhard's company wanted to release a product for young ladies, and so they did. And it became a hit. It changed everything. Its over-the-top advertising and excessively cutesy imagery probably helped tap into this demographic. It even has the cute and girly on the packaging. The product went on to do very well, despite the pulsating, pill-popping pulchritude of poppy pink, or maybe because of it. Among the women who would buy this product were the next 2 characters of our story, Kathleen and Toby, who were colleagues. One day they were hanging out with Toby's boyfriend. A good time was had by all, and at the end of it, Kathleen wrote Toby's boyfriend a message. A message that would change everything. A message that inspired the boyfriend, who would unwittingly go on to set in motion a revolution that lasted a good part of the decade to follow, and whose reverberations can still be felt today. 5 words, that's all there was in that message that Kathleen wrote Toby's boyfriend. Now you might wonder what that girly pink product we spoke about has to do with all of this. Well, the revolution set in place couldn't be more diametrically opposite from this product, which was cutesy and very, very 80s pink. The revolution that Toby's boyfriend started was downright dirty, raw, loud. And you know what? A lot of frustrated kids like that. A lot of them had enough of the glitzy glam and manufactured happiness of the 80s. They wanted an outlet for their true feelings. Thanks to a mix of politics and economics, the youth was angry and they didn't have an outlet. It just felt like something had to explode and change everything. And it did in the unlikely form of Toby's boyfriend. Armed with that 5-word message. You see, Toby's boyfriend was a musician. His group's first record 3 years ago sold, well, let's just say that it's sold. Some positive coverage, just enough to cover the recording bills, nothing great. Expectations weren't all that high for the second record, which was in the process of being written, which is when Kathleen wrote him the message. Again, you must be wondering, as you rightly should, what is that girly product? How does that fit in? Are you going to tell us what that damn girly product is? Here, dear listener, is now where I need to confess and tell you how this season of The Origin of Things is going to be different. You see, the first 2 seasons focused on brands. Indeed, the idea for the show was to be origin stories of brands. But back in 2018, when I conceptualized the show, I had a rare moment of foresight thinking that one day I might want to do origin stories of things beyond brands, which is why this show was called Toot and not Tube. So this season is not going to be about brands, although coincidentally this first story features one. In 1878, when Gerhard Heinrich Mennen set sail, he didn't think that his entrepreneurial venture would one day end up altering the course of popular music. A century and a quarter later, Kathleen and Toby saw the brand in a store and picked it up. Remember I said they were colleagues? They were. They were members of an all-girl rock group called Bikini Kill. Kathleen was teasing her colleague and her boyfriend for spending so much time together. So much so that she wrote that boyfriend a message, implying that he reeked of Toby's deodorant. The boyfriend, far from getting teased or annoyed, looked at the message the next morning and thought, that would make a good name for a song. A song which nobody had too much expectation from. It was among the last to be included on the album. The band didn't think too much of it. In fact, the record label thought that they were being optimistic when they sent just 46,000 copies of the album to the stores. An album whose most famous song, the band's most famous song, and possibly the era's most famous song, surpassed 1 billion streams recently on Spotify. A song that changed everything, inspired by a 5-word message written with a marker on a motel wall. Kurt smells like Teen Spirit. See you next week with another musical episode of The Origin of Things. Oh, by the way, remember I said a Malayali might play a role in the story? Well, as you might know, Kurt's band, Nirvana, were one of the pioneers of the Seattle grunge sound that took over the world. Another one of those pioneers was Soundgarden, whose guitarist, Kim Thayil, was the son of immigrants from Kerala. We bloody people are everywhere. If you like this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us and all our shows on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com. You can also follow us on social media. We are at IVM Podcast on Twitter and Instagram. If you want to reach out to me, that's Chuck_Gopal on Twitter and Chuck of All Trades on Instagram. All links in the show notes of this episode. See you next week.